All right, folks, today, July 3rd, mining.com posted a very interesting article titled Returning Luster, Silver to the Moon. So we are going to be breaking that down. But first, if you enjoy silver stacking as much as I do, and you want to be updated on a daily basis, continually staying in the loop of everything that's relevant with precious metals, especially heading into the latter end of the year, then make sure you click subscribe and click the bell so you get immediately notified when I post. And if you wanted a safe, cheap, reliable place to purchase your gold and silver, well, Miles Franklin is the best. We have tons of great prices right now. Eagles $5.95 over spot, 90% $250. We have 10th ounce gold Eagles $39 over melt. We have kilo bars as low as $1.79. 10 ounce bars low as $2.25. Great prices. Slayer at milesfranklin.com or call me 330-485-6172. Now, with that said, let's jump into this article. Returning luster, silver to the moon. Continuing inflation may be crippling consumers, but it is doing wonders for giving silver back its luster, with the precious metal gaining over 34% in the past 6 months. Make sure you stick through this video because towards the end, we're going to take this a little bit of a different direction. Now, there's a lot that's happening right now, geopolitically, economically, industrially, everything, but there's another area that I feel like a lot of people miss. And I actually just had a conversation on the phone with a gentleman right before recording this video that made me want to talk about it because I haven't in a while. So make sure you stick around to the end. So in late May, silver hit its highest point in 12 years, climbing to a 2024 high of $32.42. And that is from the $48.81 an ounce level. So think about that. Last time silver went up to $48.81 last time we saw silver at $32.42 was when it was going up to $48. That's the last time we've seen that. We broke past 12-year highs, meaning that resistant barrier, that $30 resistance level is now cracked open. Floodgates have opened, meaning it's easier for the price to go higher and harder for the price to stay lower, whereas beforehand it was harder for the price to go higher because it would always bounce down from 30, harder for it to go higher and easier for it to go lower. Now the tables have literally turned because we broke past that resistance. And now there's a lot of strong support at 28.29 because people know that it can go and will go a lot higher. Whereas before, we didn't have that justification because it would always bounce down from 30. Well, that's not the case any longer. Maria Smirnova, Senior Portfolio Manager and Chief Investment Officer for Sprott Asset Management, says silver has been playing catch-up to gold's rally. While gold has been running for longer in terms of percentage gains, and the safe haven metal has only advanced 17.6% in 2024 to a peak of $2,443.25 in May. Smirnova says both metals have been buoyed by the prospect of easing monetary policy in the U.S., rising geopolitical turmoil in the Middle East, and central bank buying, particularly from China. And quote, silver faced several headwinds in 2023, most notably rising interest rates and slower economic growth in both US and China, she says. And yes, this is a big point as well. China, the biggest consumer of silver, and actually India outbeating China this year in the most silver consumed, and actually India consumed more silver this year in the first 4 months than the entirety of last year. And the year before that actually tripled the amount in from last year to this year so far. So we are seeing big countries accumulating a lot more silver this year than the previous year, which is going to have to counteract into the type of demand we're looking at. When we say annual demand globally was 1.2 billion ounces, well, that could easily be 1.4 billion ounces from the Silver Institute, which they actually go down here and mention in a second. So we already have record-breaking supply deficits, 190 million ounces in the red last year, with a lot of countries not even accumulating much silver, is the point they're saying. So we are going to see this gap get even bigger, affecting the silver deficit even more. Quote, while the physical silver market was robust in 2023, Western investment demand was tepid, with silver bullion ETFs shedding approximately 50 million ounces during the year and representing more than 6% of holdings. Quote, looking ahead, we expect silver prices to continue to improve, driven by low interest rates, more robust physical ETF purchases, and increased industrial demand, end quote. The Silver Institute sees silver demand rising 2% this year because of its dual purposes as a key element in the clean energy transition. And this is why I've always been saying silver is the best of both worlds, and also why my name is Silver Slayer and not Gold Guy for a reason. Is because silver has opportunity and potential where in areas that gold simply just doesn't. Silver does benefit where gold does as well, but silver also has this other thing going for it, which is actually a huge deal. An anticipated 20% increase in the solar photovoltaic market is forecast to drive industrial fabrication to yet another all-time high in 2024, with a further 9% gain anticipated. Silver's high conductivity, thermal efficiency, and optical reflectivity make it an ideal product to use in solar panels, which convert sunlight into electrons for energy. Silver's role is to either channel these electrons into storage or out for immediate consumption. Bloomberg NEF sees the global solar industry climbing 32% in 2024. That's crazy. And now look at these numbers. 34% in 2024. Silver Institute estimates suggest demand for this sector could rise as much as 170% in 2030. And that's just PV cells, photovoltaic. But what about, let's say, EVs or BEVs or 5G towers or silver lithium-ion batteries or AI chips? I mean, we're talking about something that is so out of whack, that is so blatantly obvious. And I'm talking about the silver shortage, or the foreseeable future, the upcoming shortage of silver that is going to destroy industry at rates nobody, not even myself, can fathom right now. Because we're talking about us advancing in this digital era, this new technological era, saving the planet by going green, zero net emissions by the year 2050, solar panels flooding the earth, 5G towers, everyone and everywhere has a cell phone now, and AI chips now, and robots. How in the world are we going to be able to keep producing these goods and these satellites and surveillance and drones and missiles? I mean, there's 11,000 ounces of silver in a single torpedo, 500 ounces of silver in a Tomahawk missile. With all these wars going on, how or where are we going to get that silver from? Because remember, even the N-type solar cells use more silver. The solar cells that are going to be replacing old solar cells and solar panels actually require more silver, because more silver makes them more efficient. They're not going to be looking at trying to cut down the amount of silver if using more silver makes them last longer. So more silver is going to become adding into certain sectors that could be used for other sectors. And don't even try to get me started with recycling, because that won't even put a dent into the amount of silver we need. Remember, over 500 million ounces in the red just the last 3 years alone. Silver demand in jewelry and silverware fabrication is predicted to rise 4% and 7% respectively, but bar and coin demand is forecasted to contract by 13%, according to the Silver Institute. Later this year, however, a delayed monsoon season in India could impact silver demand, according to German technology groups. This is because rainfall is critical to agriculture, and delayed rainfall may negatively impact rural incomes. Horace says, with rural communities are an important buyer of precious metals. According to figures from the Silver Institute, last year, India accounted for 3,771 tons of silver demand in jewelry and silverware, and 46% of global demand in these two sectors. Quote, if rural disposable incomes are negatively impacted, silverware and jewelry demand could be hit, as well as demand for gold. Now, if you're trying to talk about India, that's silly, because India, like I already said, imported more silver in the first 4 months of this year than the entirety of last year. So they've already done their part, but it's not stopping. We have the huge BRICS meeting in October as well, which who knows what they're going to be cooking up over there with like 150 countries all joining together. Russia recently detaching from the dollar, which is in the BRICS, right? Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. And if Russia's doing it, I'm sure everyone else, that's the goal, is to completely detach from the US dollar, which what is that going to do to silver? Push it higher, since silver and the dollar have a direct negative correlation. When the dollar index is stronger, gold and silver is lower. When the dollar index is lower, gold and silver is stronger. If we know the dollar is inevitably going to fail and collapse, then what does that say? Now, historically, Sprott says half of silver demand has been industrial, with the remainder coming from investment and investment-like categories such as jewelry, silverware, bars, and coins. Smirnova says that in recent years, however, the balance has been shifting in favor of industrial demand, which now represents 55% of total silver demand. Quote, this category has been growing steadily, and estimates are that it hit a record high of 654 million ounces last year in a 1.2 billion ounce market. This represents an 11% jump from 2022. Supply cliff, and here's the important part, right? All these numbers wouldn't be that big of a deal if we could keep up with it, but we can't. At the same time, supply is predicted to witness a modest 1% drop, and it dropped, by the way, I think, 4 or 2% last year. They were predicting a 4% or a 2% increase. It was actually down 2%, but that is only set to widen supply and demand gap further to 215 million ounces, second largest market deficit in more than 2 decades. Last year, it was 190 million ounces in the red. Now they're expecting a 215 million ounce deficit. So just in the last 2 years alone, that's 400 million ounces in the red. Just in the last 2 years. The Silver Institute also notes that silver would become an indispensable material as artificial intelligence evolves. This includes areas of transportation, nanotechnology, biotechnology, healthcare, consumer wearables, computing and energy, and data centers. And this is all of the things that silver is used for in an EV. Meanwhile, Smirnova says that silver market deficit is expected to grow by 17% in 2024 as supply stagnates and industrial demand posts another record. Quote, we have already seen a decline of 480 million ounces of silver held on the major exchanges since February of 2021. We believe the global energy transition will be highly positive for silver, leading to much higher prices for silver bullion and equities. Mike Jones, managing director of Impact Minerals, which has 2 Australian silver projects in his portfolio, tells mining.com silver has increased 6-fold since 2000, but it's much more volatile than gold, having peaked at $45 in 2011. It's a buy and hold investment together with gold. There's increasing talk of silver to the moon as it appears to be an emergent silver supply deficit, and so it is likely the price will continue to rise radically over the next few years. And then they have the pure play versus byproduct. And this is another important part. I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty of this, but here's a summary. Most silver is found by accident. Boom. Most silver is found by accident. Miners are looking for gold, lead, and zinc. If they find some silver, they'll take it, but they're not looking for it. Most silver is found on accident. It's a byproduct. There's very few silver mines. Like Hecla Mining is the biggest silver mine in America. They mine around 16 million ounces of silver on a good year. 16 million, with a global demand of 1.2 billion, possibly 1.4 billion. First Majestic Silver, Keith Neumeyer, he mined, I think, like 10 million ounces last year. 10 million. Silver is largely produced as a byproduct of other metals like copper, lead, zinc, and gold. Only 28% of silver mines produce, or of mines that produce the precious metal are primary silver mines, according to the Silver Institute. So, and then Smirnova says silver mine production is prone to disruptions and unforeseen events, which have culminated in the current supply shortage. I mean, you have like the silver mine in Canada that was trying to get pushed up was actually shut down to protest because they were saying it would contaminate the groundwater. You have a lot of situations like that, especially like with Peru and Mexico, like the 2 of the biggest countries that produce, I think Peru and Mexico alone produce like 40-something% of all silver. So Jones says individual grades intersected during drilling at the Silica Hill prospect reached over 1,000 grams per ton. So, anyways, here's some of the summary though. So, Gavin Wendt, resource analyst and founding director of Mine Life, told Mining.com in April that many pure-play silver hopefuls would have operating costs around $25 an ounce, which means their operations would not be profitable through the cycle. Therefore, junior explorers find it much more enticing to retain exposure to silver via joint ventures in non-core projects or as byproduct credits. So, what do you think about all this? When do you think we will be in a situation where the lack of silver is truly going to affect the price? I've always said by the year 2026. I was on the phone with someone and they were talking about silver's price being held back and a realistic time frame. You never want people to just think that silver is going to skyrocket tomorrow. That's dangerous. It's not true, and you shouldn't believe it. Realistically, for me to tell people that I do think silver will explode or skyrocket or whatever, those trigger words are, I would have to genuinely come from a place that I believe, and that for me is 2026. I've been saying that for years. I've never once said silver's going to explode tomorrow. I've always been very open and vocal about trying to let people realistically understand that it's not going to happen tomorrow, not next week, not even next month or next year. And it shouldn't, and you shouldn't want it to. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. Along with, and this is another important part, is people realizing that you still have time. It's not like, oh, I have to buy it all right now because tomorrow I'm not going to be able to. Now, yes, it's true that some items are getting harder and harder to acquire, but I don't want people to be impulsively buying through emotion. And that's the conversation we had is, when people are investing or making any choice off emotion, that's where mistakes are made. You have to be able to invest with your head, not your heart. A lot of people are very emotional, and rightfully so, given so much going on, which makes it even more dangerous because there's a lot of doom and gloom out there, fear, uncertainty, doubt. So I'm just saying, just get what you can and be realistic about it, and don't hope or expect it to explode tomorrow because it shouldn't. That's not how this works. This is a situation that we are putting our money into as the inevitable collapse of the dollar happens. And if you were to sell one day, you shouldn't plan on selling for another 10, 15, 20 years, maybe 5 years if you're older and already retired, whatever. The whole point is, though, this is not something like, okay, I'm going to buy the silver right now and next year it's going to be $120. I'm going to cash out and then buy that Ferrari. That's not the way to, that's not the right mindset. And if you have that mindset, you're going to get burnt. You're going to get burnt bad because that is not the point of investing into it. Okay, folks? So anyways, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you did, make sure to like the video. Remember, subscribe because I post daily. And, if you wanted to purchase from me, email me, slayer@milesfranklin.com, or call me 330-485-6172, and I'd be happy to take care of you. Thanks for tuning in. This was Silver Slayer. I will see you guys tomorrow. Peace.